Welcome to a journey where the veil between this world and the next is at its thinnest. Across the landscape of America, there are places where the earth holds more than just the physical remains of the past. It holds the restless energy of those who cannot move on. Today we are counting down the top 10 most haunted cemeteries in the United States. We aren't just looking at headstones, we're unearthing stories of tragedy, betrayal, and the lingering spirits that still walk these hallowed grounds. From the dust of the Wild West to the moss-draped shadows of the South, prepare yourself. We begin our countdown at number 10. 10. Boothill Graveyard, Tombstone, Arizona. In the late 1870s, Tombstone was the crown jewel of the Wild West, a boomtown fueled by silver and blood. But as the town grew, so did its need for a place to put the fallen. Established in 1878, Boothill Graveyard wasn't a place for the elite, it was the final destination for those who died with their boots on. This wasn't a site of quiet mourning, it was a rough patch of rocky earth where miners, outlaws, and lawmen were tossed into shallow graves, often marked only by wooden crosses that the desert sun would eventually bleach white. By 1883, the cemetery was closed to the public, replaced by a newer, more respectable site. It lay neglected for decades, reclaimed by cactus and coyotes, until the 1920s when the town realized the ghosts of its past were a draw for the living. This afterlife of the cemetery saw it restored not as a place of rest, but as a monument to the violence of the frontier. The hauntings here are as legendary as the people buried within. Visitors frequently report seeing the spirit of Billy Clanton, one of the men killed at the famous OK Corral gunfight. Eyewitnesses describe a young man in period clothing walking toward the town, his form shimmering in the heat haze before vanishing into the dust. Then there is the unsettling case of George Johnson. His headstone famously reads, "Hanged by mistake." Paranormal investigators have captured strange floating lights near his grave, and many feel a sudden choking sensation when standing near the spot where he was buried for a crime he didn't commit. The most chilling encounters, however, involve the Shadow Man, a tall, dark figure that looms over the graves of the outlaws. Unlike the other spirits who seem caught in a loop, this entity is said to watch visitors with a heavy, malevolent presence. Photographers often find strange, misty figures in their frames, figures that weren't there when the shutter clicked. Boothill is a place where the lawlessness of the 1800s never truly ended. The gunfights may be over, but the anger of the dead remains etched into every rocky inch of this Arizona hillside. 9. Evergreen Cemetery, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Tucked away in the Ross Township of Pittsburgh, Evergreen Cemetery began its life in 1894 as a peaceful, hilltop sanctuary. For decades, it served as a beautiful, sprawling garden of rest for the growing local community. It was designed to be a place of reflection, but as the years rolled by, the tranquility began to sour. The history of the cemetery shifted from one of quiet respect to one of urban legend, and whispered dread as reports of a spectral resident began to surface. The cemetery is most famous for the legend of Walking Rosie. Local lore suggests Rosie was a young woman who died under tragic circumstances in the early 20th century, though some versions of the story say she was a grieving mother who lost her child. Before the hauntings became a local phenomenon, Evergreen was just another scenic cemetery. Afterward, it became a focal point for the paranormal. Real encounters here are visceral. Visitors often report a heavy feeling as soon as they cross the gates, but it's the sightings of Rosie that chill the blood. She is frequently seen near the older sections of the graveyard, appearing as a solid living person until she walks behind a monument and simply disappears. One of the most famous incidents involved a local man who, while visiting a relative's grave at dusk, saw a woman in a long, dark dress walking toward him. Thinking she was a fellow mourner, he called out to her. She stopped, looked at him with a face that was described as pale and devoid of any life, and then vanished as if she had been wiped from reality. Others have reported the sounds of children laughing in the dead of night, even though the cemetery is locked and empty. There are even accounts of phantom cars, old-fashioned headlights that appear in the distance on the cemetery's winding paths, only to blink out when they get close. In Pittsburgh, Evergreen isn't just a place for the dead, it's a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and Walking Rosie continues her eternal, lonely stroll through the headstones. 8. Union Cemetery, Stratford, Connecticut. In the quiet town of Easton, near Stratford, lies Union Cemetery, a site that dates back over 400 years. Its history began in the 1600s, serving the earliest settlers of Connecticut. For centuries, it was a simple colonial burial ground. However, following a series of tragic accidents on the nearby Route 59 and the rise of paranormal research in the mid-20th century, Union Cemetery became known as one of the most haunted places in America. The most famous spirit here is the White Lady. She is described as having long, dark hair and wearing a flowing white nightgown and bonnet. While she is often seen wandering the graveyard, she is most notorious for her encounters on the road. Dozens of police officers and firemen have reported hitting a woman in white on Route 59, only for her to vanish upon impact. In 1993, an off-duty firefighter reported a large dent in the front of his car after striking her, but when he stepped out to help, there was no body, no blood, only the cold Connecticut air. But the White Lady isn't the only resident. There is the terrifying, red-eyed ghost. Many believe this is the spirit of Earl Kellogg, a man who was tragically set on fire across the street and burned to death in 1935. Visitors often report seeing a pair of glowing red eyes peering at them from the dark woods behind the cemetery. Unlike the White Lady, who seems sorrowful, the red-eyed entity is described as pure, radiating anger. Famous demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren spent years investigating this site, even claiming to have captured the White Lady on film. They described the cemetery as a psychic magnet that draws in restless souls from the surrounding area. Whether it's the cold spots that appear even in the height of summer, or the disembodied whispers that name visitors as they walk past the older stones, Union Cemetery remains a terrifying testament to the fact that some spirits are tied to the earth by ties far stronger than death. 7. Colonial Park Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is a city built upon its dead, and nowhere is that more evident than Colonial Park Cemetery. Established in 1750, it was the city's primary burial ground for over a century. Its early history was one of struggle. It holds the mass graves of nearly 700 victims of the 1820 yellow fever epidemic. But its haunted history truly began during the Civil War. When Union soldiers occupied Savannah, they used the cemetery as a campsite. In a dark display of boredom and disrespect, they took to moving bodies and using their bayonets to alter the dates on headstones. Some people are buried years before they were born, or years after they died, leaving the spirits in a state of perpetual confusion and rage. The most terrifying legend of Colonial Park is that of René Rondolier. Legend describes René as a giant of a man, nearly 7 feet tall, who lived in the late 1700s. He was accused of the brutal murder of several young girls, and was eventually lynched by a mob from a tree inside the cemetery. After his death, the murders didn't stop, and many believed René's spirit was continuing his grim work from beyond the grave. Today, visitors report seeing a massive shadow hanging from the hanging tree or walking along the back wall of the cemetery. The paranormal activity isn't just visual. People report the sounds of children crying near the mass graves of the fever victims, and the distinct sound of phantom dogs snarling in the shadows. Perhaps the most eerie detail is the green mist that often rolls across the grounds at night. Local guides say this mist is the collective energy of the thousands of souls whose graves were disturbed by the soldiers. Because the headstones were moved and the records lost, these spirits don't know where their bodies lie. They are lost in their own home, trapped between the beautiful oak trees and the desecrated stones of old Georgia. 6. Gettysburg Battlefield Cemeteries, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. In July 1863, the small town of Gettysburg became the site of the bloodiest battle ever fought on American soil. Over 50,000 men were killed, wounded, or went missing in just 3 days. When the smoke cleared, the task of burying the dead was so overwhelming that many were placed in shallow, unmarked graves right where they fell. Later, the Gettysburg National Cemetery was established, dedicated by Abraham Lincoln himself to honor the Union fallen. Before the battle, this was peaceful farmland. Afterward, it became a massive open-air tomb. The hauntings began almost immediately. Since the late 1800s, visitors have reported seeing sentinel ghosts, soldiers still standing guard over the fields. In the National Cemetery itself, many report seeing a blue boy, a young Union soldier who wanders the Pennsylvania section, weeping. One of the most chilling documented incidents occurred at Devil's Den, a rocky area near the cemetery. A visitor once encountered a man who looked exactly like a Texas soldier from the 1860s, barefoot, wearing a floppy hat, and looking disheveled. The man pointed toward the woods and said, "What you're looking for is over there," before simply dissolving into the air. At night, the atmosphere changes. People have recorded electronic voice phenomena that sound like rhythmic drumming, the neighing of horses, and the unmistakable crack of musket fire. Some even claim to have seen entire phantom regiments marching through the mist, reliving their final charge in an eternal loop. These aren't just ghosts. They are echoes of a trauma so deep that the land itself seems to have recorded it. The soldiers of Gettysburg didn't just die here. They are still fighting a war that ended over 160 years ago, waiting for a peace that may never come. 5. Granary Burying Ground, Boston, Massachusetts. In the heart of bustling downtown Boston, surrounded by skyscrapers and the hum of city life, lies a silent rectangle of green known as the Granary Burying Ground. Established in 1660, this was Boston's third cemetery, carved out of the original Boston Common. For over a century, it was simply a place of rest for the city's early residents. It holds the remains of American titans, Paul Revere, John Hancock, and Samuel Adams. But its history took a darker turn after the Revolutionary War. As the city grew, the cemetery became overcrowded. It is estimated that while there are only 2,300 headstones, over 5,000 bodies are crammed into this small plot of land, often layered one on top of the other. This overcrowding is said to have created a spiritual pressure that has made the Granary one of the most active paranormal sites in New England. The most famous resident spirit is James Otis Jr., a lawyer and patriot who famously coined the phrase, "Taxation without representation is tyranny." Otis didn't die in battle. He was struck by a bolt of lightning while standing in a doorway in 1783. Since then, he has never truly left. Visitors frequently report seeing a tall man in Colonial-era breeches and a tricorn hat standing near the back of the cemetery. He doesn't just appear, he is often heard. People have reported the distinct sound of a cane tapping against the stone paths, only for the sound to stop the moment they turn around. Then there are the more unsettling encounters. In the corner near the Boston Massacre Memorial, witnesses often see a headless woman wandering between the markers. Legend says she is a victim of a botched execution from the 1600s, still searching for her identity. In the 1900s, after the cemetery became a tourist landmark, the activity ramped up. Tourists today frequently capture spirit orbs in photographs, but more chillingly, many report the sensation of being touched, a cold hand on a shoulder or a sharp tug on a coat, when no one else is nearby. Some even claim to hear faint spectral hymns being sung near the grave of the parents of Benjamin Franklin. The Granary is a place where the American Revolution never truly ended. The patriots are still there, keeping watch over the city they helped build, even if their eyes are no longer made of flesh and bone. 4. Bonaventure Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia. Bonaventure Cemetery is the definition of Southern Gothic. Located on a scenic bluff overlooking the Wilmington River, it began as a private plantation in 1762 before becoming a public cemetery in 1846. Before it was haunted, it was a place of immense beauty and wealth, owned by the Mulrine and Tatnall families. But after the Civil War and the rise of the Victorian cult of death, Bonaventure transformed. Its moss-draped oaks and elaborate statues became the backdrop for some of the South's most enduring ghost stories, later immortalized in the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. The most heartbreaking and famous haunting at Bonaventure centers on little Gracie Watson. Gracie was the daughter of a local hotel manager who died of pneumonia at the age of 6 in 1889. Her father was so devastated that he had a life-size statue carved in her likeness. For over a century, people have left toys at her grave, but the statue itself is said to have a life of its own. Real encounters here are chilling. Visitors have reported seeing the statue's eyes follow them as they walk by. Even more frequent are the reports of the sound of a small child laughing or crying in the distance. On several occasions, night guards have claimed to see a young girl in a white dress playing hide-and-seek among the tombstones, only for her to vanish into a mist when approached. But Bonaventure has a darker side too. Near the gates, there is a legend of phantom pack dogs. Witnesses describe the sound of heavy panting and the clinking of chains, followed by the sight of large, shadowy hounds that run through the cemetery at night. These are said to be the spirit guardians of the wealthy families buried there. The cemetery's afterlife, as a tourist destination, hasn't silenced the spirits. If anything, it has given them a larger audience. People have felt sudden drops in temperature of over 20 degrees while standing in the sun, and some have seen the Little Wendy statue, another famous monument, change its expression from a smile to a look of pure terror. In Bonaventure, the beauty of the Spanish moss hides a world of restless souls who are as much a part of the landscape as the trees themselves. 3. Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. In the heart of the movie capital of the world sits Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Founded in 1899, it was originally known as Hollywood Memorial Park. Before it was haunted, it was the premier resting place for the golden age of cinema. The moguls, the stars, and the icons who built the Dream Factory. But as the glamour of old Hollywood faded, so did the cemetery. By the 1990s, it had fallen into such disrepair that it was nearly abandoned, with crumbling crypts and overgrown weeds. It was during this period of neglect that the legends of its restless stars truly took hold. The most iconic haunting is that of the Lady in Black. For decades after the death of silent film heartthrob Rudolph Valentino in 1926, a mysterious woman dressed in head-to-toe black mourning attire would visit his crypt every year to leave a single red rose. While several living women claimed to be her, the tradition continued even after they passed away. Today, visitors to Valentino's tomb in the Cathedral Mausoleum report seeing a shadowy female figure in a black veil kneeling by his crypt. When they look closer, she simply dissolves into the marble. Another frequent encounter involves the spirit of Clifton Webb, the elegant actor known for his role in Laura. He is said to haunt the Abbey of the Psalms Mausoleum. Witnesses have reported the distinct smell of expensive cologne and the sound of someone whistling a cheerful tune in the empty hallways. More tragically, the ghost of Virginia Rapp, whose death sparked the infamous Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle scandal, is said to be heard sobbing near her grave. Her spirit is described as a cold, heavy weight that leaves visitors feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness. Hollywood Forever is a place where the stars never really left the stage. They are caught in a permanent encore, wandering the grounds of the cemetery as if waiting for one last director to shout, "Action!" 2. St. Louis Cemetery. Number 1. New Orleans, Louisiana. St. Louis Cemetery Number 1 is the oldest and most famous City of the Dead in New Orleans. Established in 1789, its history is dictated by the city's geography. Because of the high water table, bodies could not be buried underground. They would literally pop out of the earth during floods. Instead, the city built a labyrinth of above-ground white marble tombs. Before it was a paranormal hotspot, it was a necessary solution to a grisly problem. But over 2 centuries of voodoo, yellow fever, and murder have turned this one-block area into what many call the most haunted cemetery in America. The queen of this domain is Marie Laveau, the legendary voodoo queen of New Orleans. Even in death, she is said to hold court. For over 100 years, people have visited her tomb to mark 3 X's on the stone, hoping she will grant their wishes. But Marie is more than just a legend. She is an active presence. Visitors often report seeing a woman in a bright red and white turban walking through the narrow aisles of the cemetery. She doesn't look like a ghost. She looks solid, until she turns a corner and disappears into a dead-end wall. Those who disrespect her tomb have reported being slapped by invisible hands or hearing a booming feminine voice whispering warnings in their ears. Then there is the tragic figure of Henry Vignes. In the 19th century, Henry was a sailor who left his family papers and the deed to his tomb with his landlady while he went to sea. She betrayed him, selling the tomb for her own profit. When Henry died, he was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave. Today, he is the most frequently cited ghost in the cemetery. Described as a tall man with piercing blue eyes, he often approaches tourists and asks them where his family tomb is located. He appears so real that people have engaged in full conversations with him, only to have him vanish mid-sentence. St. Louis No. 1 is a place where the line between the living and the dead is practically non-existent, a maze of stone where the voodoo queen still reigns, and the forgotten still search for their home. 1. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Midlothian, Illinois. Hidden deep within the Rubio Woods Forest Preserve, at the end of a long-abandoned dirt path, lies Bachelor's Grove. Established in 1844 as a small pioneer cemetery, it was a peaceful family burial ground for decades. But its afterlife became a nightmare. By the 1960s, it was abandoned and became a focal point for vandalism, occult rituals, and, most chillingly, a dumping ground for the Chicago mob. Rumor has it that Al Capone's associates would use the nearby pond to dispose of bodies during the Prohibition era. This layer of modern violence on top of ancient graves created a paranormal storm that has earned it the title of the most haunted cemetery in the world. There are over 100 documented types of paranormal phenomena here. The most famous is the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove, also known as the White Lady. She is the spirit of a woman buried next to her young child, and she is frequently seen wandering the grounds during a full moon, carrying an infant in her arms. In 1991, a photograph was taken by a professional paranormal team that appeared to show a ghostly, transparent woman sitting on a tombstone, a photo that remains one of the most famous pieces of ghost evidence in history. But the White Lady is only the beginning. There are reports of a phantom farmhouse, a white two-story house with a glowing light in the window that appears in the woods near the cemetery. When visitors try to walk toward it, the house gets smaller and smaller before vanishing entirely. There are sightings of a ghostly plowman and his horse, a black demon dog with glowing red eyes that guards the entrance, and even a two-headed ghost that roams the back of the property. Real encounters often involve phantom cars that disappear into thin air on the road leading to the cemetery. Investigators have captured voices on tape that sound like a crowd of people talking, yet the woods are empty. Bachelor's Grove is not just a cemetery, it is a rupture in reality. It is a place where every nightmare you've ever had seems to have taken up permanent residence, waiting in the shadows of the Illinois woods for the next person brave enough to walk the path. From the forgotten pioneers of Illinois to the voodoo queen of New Orleans, we have reached the end of our journey through America's most haunted cemeteries. These places remind us that history isn't just something found in books. It is something that lingers in the air, in the cold spots, and in the whispers of those who refuse to be forgotten. The next time you walk past a graveyard at night, remember the stories we've told today. Because sometimes, when you feel like you're being watched, you probably are. Thank you for joining us on this descent into the unknown. Sleep well, if you can.